Hi, I'm Barbie Romero, the Director of Event Programming at MediaPost. Welcome to our Brand Insider series, Ask Me Anything. After each of our Brand Insider summits, we always get feedback that you make great connections and have amazing conversations. This week, we are changing things up a bit and putting a spotlight on our own Steve Smith, the VP Editorial Director of Events at MediaPost. Steve has a PhD in American Civilization and was the only professor to be told to turn down the music videos of his class at UVA. He has also been programming our events since 2007. Welcome, Steve.
Hi, Barbie.
Hey, great to have you. So I'm excited to have you as our guest. And since you've been programming our events since 2007, I'm curious to hear who was the best person you interviewed, and or maybe like the best marketing campaign that you perhaps admired over the years.
Uh, well, I didn't know there was going to be a cognitive test. Uh, and so you're taxing my memory already. After so many shows, they all tend to bleed together. I would say the ones that I value, especially recently, is I like people who will argue with me on stage and who are open enough and free enough to argue with me.
Yeah.
So I had, for instance, just in last year, I had a great time with Rick Robinson, who's the CEO of an outdoor media agency, because
Adrian.
he's sort of an old school ad guy. He has a big vision of what outdoor advertising could be.
Yeah.
And he and I got a chance to mix it up on stage and disagree with things and argue it out. My background is sort of the Socratic method. So I like arguing about stuff with people who are interested in digging into the ideas, and that's hard to do with a lot of marketers. And honestly, the interviews that I remember most go way back to like the turn of the century. Would I ever be able to say that? The people that I interviewed in the early days of the internet, and the early days of mobile, I mean, I remember Christy Hefner, Hugh Hefner's daughter, who for many years ran Playboy. She was simply one of the smartest, earliest thinkers about the internet. She understood back in the late 90s that video and e-commerce is where the money was going to be here. Obviously, it didn't work out for Playboy, but I loved talking to her because
Mm-hmm.
she really understood what was coming. Um, Omar Wasaw, who used to run Black Planet and Mahente, which were early social networks around 2001, who catered to both Hispanic and Black audiences long before Mark Zuckerberg was thinking about this stuff. They knew that there was a special energy to social interaction. These were social forums that were going off the charts.
Yeah.
Um, and I remember those interviews because they had real they left me with things that I've always remembered and always recalled. Um, but the best onstage moment for me that I remember for sure, as was the first event that I did for MediaPost. Oma Mobile was on in 2007 on, I believe it was June 31st, because it was the day the iPhone was released. Right down the street from the New York place where we were doing this, we did our first OMA show, which was really the beginning of a lot of the events that we've done over the last 15 years. And I had a panel of agency folks, and they were all mobile agency folks. And this was in the day when they didn't really have mobile agencies; they had like mobile specialties within agencies. And I remember it was a very good panel, a very lively panel, and I was moderating it. And as they were walking off, I did something you should never do. And if one of my people did that on stage, I'd be aghast. They were walking off the stage, and it suddenly occurred to me that I didn't ask them if they thought the iPhone was going to be important, because it was really an open question back then. And I remember Nihal, I want to make sure I've got it right, Nihal Mehta, who was at a mobile ad agency at the time. He stopped, he was standing, I'll never forget this. He was standing on the stairs going off the stage. And I asked them, is the iPhone going to be all that it's cracked up to be? And Nihal said, put a stake in the ground. Everything after today is going to be different. And he
Mhm.
was absolutely right. And probably of all the things ever said on our stages, it was the most prophetic and most important. And he was absolutely right. Everything changed after that. Everything we know about digital changed after that. And that, I think the fact that I even thought to do that and to break protocol and do that, and that it came out so well in retrospect, um, that's one of my favorite moments on stage. Anyway,
That's
that's all
that
I got. And I
yeah,
and
I
I
mean
also, by the way, and now see, now you got me started because you're going to put me into nostalgia mode, right?
yeah.
Um, uh, the people at our summits I remember most are the CMOs who were so gracious. You know, a lot of senior marketing executives, they come in, they like to do drop-ins, they're gone before we even get to roundtables at the end of the morning.
Mhm.
Um, I remember John Costello, who was the CEO of Dunkin' Donuts, coming for one of our first mobile shows in New York, and he did a keynote and he stayed the entire day. There's no reason he had to do that. He just felt he wanted to be there, he wanted to learn, he wanted to talk to everybody. And the same thing when we had the CMO of Friendlies at one of our summits a number of years ago. He was totally into it, interacted with everybody. And I, as a programmer, um, having to deal with a range of different speakers with different attitudes, that's the stuff that I guess, and also I'm an old man now, I value people who are just decent to each other. um, I really admire that decency and that generosity. And those are the things you remember, I think, um, later on. Anyway,
Yeah.
I think that's all I can remember.
I mean, there was another question here asking what's the most fulfilling moment of your career so far? Um, it sounds like you kind of answered that, but if you have another answer
Um,
for that.
oh no, no, no. Well, yeah, yeah. No, that was the best, I think Nahal was one of the best on stage moments. I mean, I think I had, as you mentioned, I've had a bunch of careers. So I've had different really cool and wonderful things that stand out for me.
Mhm.
Um, I think academically, you always remember the day you got your PhD. That
Mhm.
is like, and got notes from my advisors telling me how good they thought it was. That's a day that I will always remember.
Mhm.
Um, I think the thing that was most important to me that I did at MediaPost was start the Mobile Insider in
Mhm.
2007.
Mhm.
That was an idea that I had sent to Ken Fadner and Joe Mandisi. I said I'd already been covering mobile for a while. I said nobody's writing about mobile advertising because nobody really thinks it's going to happen. Um, and I'm proud of that because because I got to be first at something, and that's kind of cool.
Yeah.
And I got to be among the first to write about it. And I sort of it was kind of what I had done since I started, because I started writing about the internet in 1994,
Mhm.
um, and was one of the first people to write like critical reviews of websites.
Oh.
Um, and I used to get notes from, because when I wrote the first magazine I wrote for was Cyber Surfer. Jason Calacanis edited it. It was back in 1995, and I was writing about this new thing, the internet, the World Wide Web, as it was called when it was first becoming an open web. And I got to be the first to write, I wrote about gaming as an art form for a site called Happy Puppy back in the back in the 90s. And, I got to write about mobile marketing. I got to write about a whole bunch of things as they were just coming up and take them seriously. And that is the part that I enjoyed the most, was
Yeah.
being in on the early parts of those conversations was just so much fun. And it was a time when you would talk to people and they were really alive with ideas about where this could go. Um, and that sounds so, I mean, that is, but I think at MediaPost, Mobile Insider, the summits are like they're such a group effort. This is a great thing that I think we've built in the last 15, 20 years. But I'm not sure that I want to take that much credit for it, because it was really a fantastic group of people. John Whitfield is the heart and soul of our summits. These summits would not be anything without John. He embodies the summits on so many levels. I came along and gave it a voice. Um, and Seth came along and really raised the level of the revenue that was possible here and the
Mm,
level of marketers and different venues ideas we would go down. But John's really like the heart of this, and then a whole staff that makes it work. So, I mean,
mm,
I'm really proud that that we've built the summits into
yeah.
what they are and to be so different from everybody else. But that was really a group effort. I just I wrote along.
Yeah, that's great to hear. And speaking about the summits, someone also submitted, what is the craziest thing you've seen at a summit?
Well, the blackouts are always fun. We've had
Oh,
more than
yeah,
one blackout.
I was part of one of
Um,
those.
I was not part of the greatest blackout. The blackout that I thought was I was so proud of our team. And I wasn't at it. Lisa Singer, our Lisa, was the one who was emceeing, and John was there to make. So what we did was I think it was last year. Barbie,
Yeah, I
you
was there.
remember which one it was.
It was
We were
QSR.
It was the QSR summit. The lights went out. They went down into another room that had natural sunlight. And the speakers agreed to give their presentations by showing their laptops to people.
Yeah.
This was yeoman's work. I was so proud of our team that we did that, and I wasn't a part of it. I just got to hear about it because it was blacked out, so I wasn't even able to see the stream.
Yeah.
But that something like that did happen to us once, many years ago, at the Roosevelt Hotel, which was right across the street from Grauman's Chinese Theater in Hollywood. And they had this big ballroom that we were in, and it had no windows. So when the lights went out, there was no light. We had to tell everybody, don't move. We had to make everybody freeze so nobody got hurt. And then we had to bring in lights, and it took us like an hour to get things back up to speed. So those are always good. And then of course the people who drank too much the night before and they're still drunk when they come on stage in the morning. You never like that. That's happened. I've had speakers who I thought were going to go for half an hour and were done in 5 minutes. That's 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 always a pleasant surprise. You have to come up with a lot of Q&A. But the crazy stuff, because like Barbie, you know this, um, the crazy stuff I get told about in the morning. The crazy stuff at our summits goes on at night and at parties, um, because I'm a notorious shut-in. And the open secret of MediaPost summits is that I am temperamentally ill-suited to do this job, and yet somehow I've had it for 15, 17 years. Um, I don't like to socialize. I don't like travel. I don't like resort food. I usually fast when I'm there. I don't remember faces. I don't remember names. I have no idea what I'm doing in this job. And I'm fully confident that the people who are taking over this job are much more temperamentally suited to this than I am. So generally, I don't know what's going on off stage. I'm pretty much not connected with. I hear about it later. But one of my favorites was we used to have an event at a Key Largo yacht club. This was one of the most exclusive, weirdest places that we had an event, literally a yacht club, so that you would see small planes come in to the local airport, and these were the people coming in to board their yachts, and they were all lined up on the pier. This was an exclusive club. Everybody went around in their own golf carts and went everywhere. And so they were very, very sensitive in this community to any disruption. And, we're media posts. We're a bunch of marketers and agency people. It's not like we really make a lot of trouble. And one night, apparently the police had to be called.
Oh.
One of our parties was too loud. And the line that I got yesterday from one of our staff members at the party was because they called the police, and one of our VIPs went over to our staff member and said, "Look, I can't get arrested. No, really, I can't get arrested." And who are we? Who did we have as a VIP? Like someone with warrants out in multiple states? That was one of the wildest stories that ever came out in Media Post show. But they've been pretty tame. Anyway, sorry. See, you're teasing out all these stories. You're getting a guy who's about to leave, and and all of this stuff is coming out from his past.
I will say that during that blackout at QSR, Gabe Alonso from Pollo Loco was presenting. He was very good. He kept going, and the even though the room was dark, people had their flashlights on their phone, so they were shining it on him. And someone else, I think, stood up with their laptop next to him. This was before we got to the room
That's
with the natural lighting. So our speakers are the
that
best at
that
hosting.
speaks volumes to the spirit of our summits,
Yeah.
is that everybody is pitching in, everybody wants it all to work.
Hmm.
And that they're that intimate um, kind of environment. I think that really speaks volumes.
Yeah. So let's change gears a bit. You are the host of the Brand Insider podcast, and you've interviewed, I don't know, like maybe hundreds of people by now.
Mhm.
What are some like recurring themes or challenges that you've seen with like the marketers that you've interviewed? It could either be on the podcast or on stage. But what are some themes you've seen over the years?
Well, in recent years, to be honest, marketers are getting harder and harder to talk to.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Marketers and brands are just becoming that much more conservative and buttoned down and afraid of what they say in public. So having marketers be open and honest and spontaneous in an interview can be very challenging. I think there's a lot of we're not in, I'm sorry to say that we're not in a great spot right now. We're not in a great time in both marketing and advertising. I think it's obvious when you look at, say, any given Super Bowl for the last several years, any given Cannes Awards, our advertising is awful right now. And It's uninspired. Marketing has tended, I think, one of the things that's going on and has been going on for a while is that we're really paying the price of a very data-driven universe. It's very much focused, not only is advertising more and more focused on performance with fewer and fewer big ideas going on, but also I think the sort of what some think is a kind of populist focus on following the consumer may be a little misguided, because I think we're tending to focus advertising and focus marketing at sort of our lower impulses. Um, there's nothing aspirational about what's going on in advertising and marketing right now. I think they're mistaking chasing trends for chasing culture. And culture is a lot deeper than that. Culture really is about values and meanings in people's lives. And I think if brands start better understanding that, and taking a leadership role in being more imaginative in how they offer up themselves as being aligned with a broader, more aspirational set of values, will go in a better direction.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so it is hard right now, I think. A lot of the discussions around marketing tend to be very small bore, very functional. So more and more when I talk to brands, they they're most proud of having reorganized internally. They're most proud of, team building, which is fine. Um, but it's in a very narrow space right now, and I don't think it's their fault, by the way. I think culturally we're at that spot
Yeah.
where we're not entirely sure where meaning lies in our institutions, and there's not a lot of faith or there's not a lot of faith or loyalty to institutions across the board, and marketing follows culture and politics in all respects. And I think this is we're seeing this play out. So it's it's rough. I think there's a tendency for the brands to retreat to what they know can perform, and moves their business along, and that's all understandable. But it's not a place where we're seeing right now big ideas anymore. And I guess that's probably why when you ask me who are my favorite interviewees, I go back like 2 decades. Uh, there was a time, or a lot of the early mobile stuff. I remember talking to Gene Keenan, who ran one of the first mobile agencies. These are conversations that were really energizing because people were thinking out loud about where something might head, and what was and were feeling inspired. So I think there's a real focus on just on survival, on performance,
Mhm.
um, on more less on brand building than
Yeah.
on product development. That's definitely, I think people are sort of innovating through product, um, and product aimed at very particular niches of taste. Um, and I don't know how far that goes in the end, because I'm still ultimately I'm not entirely confident that brand as we knew it in the last century is going to last into this century. Brand building in the 20th century was very much tied to mass culture, mass media.
Mhm.
And since all of those things have broken down, I'm not sure what brand is going to mean now.
Mhm.
So I don't envy these guys. I'm not being too critical of them because I don't envy the position that they're in.
Mhm.
Um, they're in a culture that doesn't know, they're on a consumer base that itself doesn't know where it really wants to head. So when you start using data to try to take the temperature of people, you're taking the temperature of an audience that isn't clear yet where we're going next, and where their values and meanings lay. And that's a difficult place to be in, and I understand that, and I think it's going to take a long time for that um, to resolve, if it ever does. But I think we're definitely looking at a future where brand is not going to mean what it's meant before, and marketing is going to have to change radically because of it. Um, I'm sorry, that's all I got.
We have
But
I
I
mean,
think it.
is it like would you blame? Because the next question was about the rise of digital platforms and social media. Like, how have you observed the landscape evolve? Like, would you say that it evolved because of in that way because of that one-to-one reach now, or?
No, that's another thing that's it sort of brings me back to my academic roots. I have never believed that technology drives culture. I've always believed that culture shapes technology. So that all of the things that we'd like to blame digital media for, like for instance, our social clustering, um, polarization. Um, uh, these are all things that I think, as a historian, can point to decades of development and evolution that led us towards this. You could argue that social media and the platforms have accelerated a lot of this. I think brand was, the dissolution of things like mass media. This was going on since the 70s. The rise of cable television broke, was really the beginning of this. The internet really picked up on it and accelerated even further. But the clustering of social groups, the clustering of America, that's been going on since the early 1980s. Sociologists were seeing this. So all the things that we want to blame the platforms for and digital for,
Mhm.
all they were doing was accelerating, focusing trends that were already there. The decline of mass media, the decline of mass society, um, is something that really had started 30 years ago. And we're just seeing, in many ways, the technologies and the platforms, they took shape. We imagined them in ways that were reflecting those trends. So no, but I think that they're part of it. They accelerated it. They allow us to see how this is happening. Things like clustering just become more dramatic, and we get to see how this happens. We get to see how bad information circulates. Um, and maybe that's good in the end. Maybe that's good because at least we get a handle on it. Um, I no, I don't think so. I think it's all of a piece. I think culture is very big. When marketers talk about culture, they're very often talking about it in very narrow terms. They're talking about, the latest trend they're picking up on social. That's not culture. That's a trend. Culture is really much deeper, much broader about, identities, meanings. Um, but I wouldn't blame, I've never liked blaming technology for, it's not, I probably use this quote in 50 columns over my career. It's Julius Caesar quote, It's not in our stars, but in ourselves. Looking to blame externally what's going on is,
Mm.
I think is the wrong way to come at it. You know.
All right. Thanks. And let's change gears a little bit now. If you can go back to your younger self and give yourself a piece of self advice at the start of your career, what would it be, and why?
Um, don't wait. Um, I had to unlearn one of the things that I really appreciated about changing careers is that the weak part of being an academic is that there are no damn deadlines. And you can just sit and wallow in your research forever. And the thing that I learned when I moved into doing freelance writing was deadlines really help. They focus the mind. Um, and uh, I would say, I would say to my younger self, don't wait and try to remember the thing that I finally learned, but I have to always relearn it, by the way. I always forget my own good advice, is that writing is thinking. Um, my that means if you have an idea, start writing it. Let the research pile into it, revise it later, but start the writing because that's how you actually think things out. I learned that in doing column work. I used to write back in the mid 2000s. I was writing like 6,000 words a week for MediaPost columns. Every time we started a column, I would be the one who started it before I'd hand it off to somebody else. So I was writing at a real fast pace. We'd get up, I remember going to some of our summits and I'd get up at 5:30 so I could write a column before I had to get opening remarks ready to go on stage at 8:30.
Well,
Uh, and uh, I think understanding that writing is thinking and to uh, to not procrastinate and not over research things, but just start the writing process because that gets you thinking and that moves you towards productivity. There were so many books that I think I should have written that I never wrote because I over researched it, and I've got boxes of research material, but I had a biography of Gilbert Seldes, who was the first pop culture critic in 1924. He wrote Seven Lively Arts, which was sort of the first book ever written about that took seriously popular culture. I was well on my way to writing a biography of that, and it took me so long that somebody else beat me to it. And
um,
there's and the same thing happened then. The same thing happened with Harvey Kurtzman, who was the founder of Mad Magazine, or the first editor of Mad Magazine. I had started working on a biography of Kurtzman, but again, spent so much time researching it that somebody else beat me to it. So I've been trying to learn that lesson again and again, that writing is thinking. Just start writing and start feeding the research into it and revise later, but just get going.
I think it could be also applied to business too. Like if you want to do a campaign or something like that, like you could learn as you build it.
Yeah.
So your competitor might beat you to it. So, like you
Yeah, I
said.
mean, you could argue this was Google's business model. Didn't we? We all had to experiment with. We were all guinea pigs for their AI.
Yeah,
They
exactly.
threw AI, and it was casting off God knows what stuff. Um, I mean, it has its upside and its downside, but
Yeah.
I mean, I've followed that advice. Tried to follow that advice. I did it. I'm doing it now. I started a blog several years ago that really I regarded as kind of a rough draft for a book. So I decided, let me start taking my own lesson is let's start drafting out the book and make a blog of it.
Mm.
And it's been helpful.
Hmm. That's great. All right, so I will change now, and if you're ready for some rapid fires questions, we'll take it away. Ready?
All right. Yeah.
All right. So on LinkedIn, I saw that you posted some pictures of cities that you took pictures
Mm.
of throughout the years at summits. What was your favorite city to take pictures in?
Uh, I think I like Scottsdale a
Mm.
lot because I love I don't like nature very much.
Mm.
I think nature, again, the whole shut-in thing. I um, I think nature has must have some like real good PR or something, because I don't enjoy it. But I do appreciate nature that looks like an alien landscape, and that's what I love about Arizona. And
Mm.
so I think if you see that, I loved making the weird cacti look even stranger than it was. That is one of my favorite places to go. But the best Mohunk was also very good. Mohunk Mountain House, because it had some of the creepiest hallways in the world were there. And but then the coolest picture I ever caught, at least according to other people, because I have a Leica and I do street photography sort of thing, so it's very spontaneous. Um, I think that the best one is I remember coming to a show and coming up by the train and getting out of uh, Penn Station and walking across town. And I was there just late afternoon in just the right spot where the sun was coming through two other buildings and shining this shaft of light down the center, the exact center of a tall skyscraper. And I
Mm.
just grabbed my camera out and I said, wow. And I just stopped and I got it. And that has by far, I've posted that several places over the years, and that gets the best response. There's something about that sort of accidental symmetry that's one of the most attractive things about photography to me.
You need to
These were
send me
supposed
that
to be
picture.
light. I'm sorry. I'm breaking our rules, Barbie. These were supposed to be lightning rounds. So much for my short answer.
I love it. Send me the picture. I wanna see what I live in New York for our viewers, so I
All
wanna
right.
see what picture Steve took.
And
Uh
maybe you could tell me what the building is because I don't remember. I
okay.
like walked past it and I don't remember what building it was.
Yeah, yeah, good challenge. All right, so next question. Guilty pleasure food item. I know it's not gonna be a resort food since you fasted, but at home.
No, one answer. Always one answer. Has always been one answer. I'm terrible. I go off the vegan reservation for this anytime. Donuts.
Oh, donuts.
I love donuts. And when we go all around the country, I identify the best donut shop in town. And it
What's your
pays off.
favorite? Like, what's your favorite
Well,
donut shop?
Voodoo, I love Voodoo.
Voodoo. Okay.
Um, I love Voodoo Donuts. And in fact, Chris Schultz, who just came and spoke at QSR, that all started because I was a Voodoo donut lover. And I reached out to them and I said, these are great, and you guys have a cult following. We got to talk to you.
Oh,
I talked to Chris, and he was great, by the way. Chris is great. I would recommend people go back and look at the video of Chris at the summit. And I also did a podcast with him. Um, but I live in Amish country. The Amish make the greatest damn donuts.
mm.
Oh man, they're really generous with the fillings. So I'm up for that. But yeah, donuts for some reason are the thing for me.
I gotta go visit Amish country. I love donuts too. All right, and then here's our last question. Well, you're sitting in a library. What's your favorite book?
You want me to go pull it out? It's
If you
always
want
been the
to.
same. My favorite book has always been the same. I'm sorry, it's tedious, and but it's Moby Dick. Um,
Oh,
it, there there are two. Well, there are three American books that I've taught that I've read. In fact, I reread all three of these very recently. Moby Dick, Walt Whitman's Leaves of Grass, F. Scott Fitzgerald's Great Gatsby. Those
oh,
three books, everything you need to know about America are in those
okay.
books. And I'm an Americanist. My background's American studies. I love this culture and I love understanding it. Those three books, they reverberate. And those are the absolute best. To me, Moby Dick, I've probably read 10 times. I just love it.
What did Okay, this is my last question. What did you think of the Great Gatsby movie? Did it do a good or a bad job of the book?
I don't the latest one.
The latest one with
No,
Leonardo.
there've been three film versions of The Great Gatsby, none of which has been particularly good.
Mm.
I do enjoy. I go back. I was a kid when no, I wasn't a kid even when the Robert Redford Mia Farrow version came out in the early 70s. it was not a good movie, but I still like it and enjoy it. I tried watching the latest one. Here's my problem. I don't understand Leo DiCaprio. He's just one of those actors. I look at him and I say, how did you get into this? Uh, I just I don't get it. I don't get it. I know generations of women are absolutely in love with him. Um, but I look at him and I look at his acting and I said, what are you doing here? So, so yeah, I don't think I made it through that movie.
Oh, okay. Well, thanks so much for answering all my questions and answering
You were
questions
very tolerant,
that we
Barbie. You
not.
let me. This is like the worst of our weekly meetings of me just riffing off of memories. And we just did it now for like half an hour. Thank you for being tolerant.
No, thank you for being a great supervisor, and we'll miss you. We'll miss you at MediaPost. We'll miss you hosting the summit, even though you say you're
I
not.
will miss,
Even though you want to say that you were introverted, blah blah blah. Like I still think you were great at it, and we'll miss you.
I'm gonna miss all you guys too.
Well, thanks, Steve, and thanks to the audience for tuning in. If you have any other questions or would like to be featured at the Spotlight yourself, please contact me at Barbie@mediapost.com. Take care.